The young farm girl froze when she saw her childhood photo in her boss's ranch. The late afternoon sun filtered through the heavy burgundy curtains of Richard Walker's office, casting long golden streaks across the polished mahogany desk. Emily Brooks knocked twice on the doorframe, her calloused hands clutching a manila folder marked "Urgent" in red ink. "Mr. Walker, I have those documents you asked for." Richard looked up from his laptop, his steel gray eyes briefly meeting hers before returning to the screen. "Just leave them on the desk, Emily, thank you." She'd been working at Walker Farm for 2 years now, cleaning the mansion's endless rooms, scrubbing floors that cost more than her entire yearly salary. Richard Walker was a man of few words, polite but distant, like most wealthy people she'd worked for. She'd learned not to take it personally. Emily stepped into the office, breathing in the familiar scent of aged leather and furniture polish. Her worn sneakers made barely a sound against the hardwood floor as she approached the desk. She set the folder down carefully, making sure not to disturb the neat arrangement of pens and papers. That's when she saw it. A silver frame sat to the right of his laptop, slightly turned toward where he'd been sitting. Inside was a photograph, old. The colors faded with time, the edges yellowed like autumn leaves. But what made Emily's breath catch in her throat wasn't the age of the photo. It was the little girl in it. She was maybe 5 years old, standing in a field of sunflowers that stretched toward a brilliant blue sky. She wore a white apron with delicate embroidery along the hem, tiny flowers stitched by hand. On her head sat a blue tiara, the kind little girls beg their parents to buy at the dollar store. Her blonde hair caught the sunlight, and she was smiling, really smiling, the way kids do when they don't yet know that life can be hard. Emily's hands began to tremble. The folder slipped from her fingers and hit the floor with a sharp slap that echoed through the quiet office. That apron. She remembered that apron. Her grandmother had made it for her, spent weeks on those flowers, her arthritic hands pushing the needle through the fabric again and again. And the tiara. God, the tiara. Her mother had given it to her for her 5th birthday. Emily had worn it every single day for months until the plastic finally cracked. But how? Emily. Richard's chair scraped against the floor as he stood. "Are you all right?" She couldn't answer, couldn't breathe. Her eyes were locked on that photograph, on that little girl who was unmistakably, impossibly her. "Where did you get this?" The words came out barely above a whisper. Richard went still, his face, usually so carefully composed, drained of color. He followed her gaze to the photograph, and something changed in his expression. Something that looked like pain. Or maybe fear. Or maybe both. "Emily, where did you get this picture?" Her voice was stronger now, almost demanding. She picked up the frame with shaking hands, bringing it closer. The sunflowers. She remembered those sunflowers. They'd been behind her mother's old apartment. A field that didn't belong to anyone, where wildflowers grew free and careless. "This is me. How do you have a picture of me?" The silence stretched between them, thick and suffocating. Through the window, Emily could hear the distant sound of horses in the stables, the everyday sounds of the farm going about its business. But in this room, time had stopped. Richard closed his eyes for a long moment. When he opened them again, they were filled with something Emily had never seen in them before. Grief. Deep, old grief that had lived in him so long it had become part of who he was. "That little girl," he said, his voice rough, "was my daughter." Emily's world tilted. The frame nearly slipped from her hands. "What? I know this must be. I can't imagine what you're feeling right now. But I've been looking for that little girl for 27 years. He took a step toward her, then stopped, as if afraid he might frighten her away. "I've been looking for you, Emily." "No." She shook her head, backing toward the door. "No, that's impossible. My mother never mentioned. She never said. Your mother was Grace Brooks." The sound of her mother's name on his lips felt like a punch to the stomach. Emily's back hit the doorframe. How did he know her mother's name? How did he know any of this? "Grace worked here," Richard continued, his words coming faster now, as if he'd held them in for so long that they were desperate to escape. 27 years ago, she worked in the gardens, planting flowers, taking care of the grounds. We fell in love. She got pregnant, and then one day, she was just gone. Emily's mind was racing, trying to fit these pieces into the picture of her childhood. Her mother had always been vague about the past, about Emily's father. "He's not in our lives," she'd say, her voice gentle but final. "It's just you and me, sweetheart. That's all we need." When Emily was 10, her mother had died. Lung cancer. She'd held Emily's hand in that hospital room and whispered, "You're stronger than you know. You come from love, baby. Always remember that." And then she was gone, taking all her secrets with her. "My mother raised me alone," Emily said, her voice breaking. "We barely had anything. We lived in a tiny apartment, and she worked 2 jobs just to keep us fed. If you're my father, where were you? Why didn't you?" "I looked for her," Richard's voice cracked. "God, Emily, I looked everywhere. I hired investigators. I called every Grace Brooks in the state. I drove to every small town within 500 miles, but it was like she'd vanished. My mother told me Grace had moved on, that she didn't want to be found, that she'd made it clear she wanted nothing to do with me or the baby. I thought," he pressed his palm against his forehead, "I thought she'd left because she didn't love me, because I wasn't enough. Your mother told you that." "My mother did a lot of things I didn't learn about until it was too late." Emily stared at the photograph in her hands. That little girl looked so happy, so innocent, with her homemade apron and plastic tiara. She didn't know yet that her mother would die young. She didn't know she'd grow up wondering who her father was, making up stories about him to fill the empty space. She didn't know she'd end up working as a housekeeper in the very place where her story began. "I don't understand," Emily whispered. "How did you get this picture if you never found us? Your mother left it behind when she disappeared. This was in her room. It was the only thing she left. I've kept it all these years. It was all I had of my daughter." The way he said those last 2 words, "my daughter," with such longing and loss, made something crack inside Emily's chest. She looked at Richard Walker, really looked at him, and for the first time saw past the wealthy landowner, the distant boss. She saw a man who'd been broken by something and never quite put back together. She saw, when she looked in his steel-gray eyes, a reflection of her own. "I need to go," Emily said abruptly, setting the frame back on the desk with trembling hands. I can't, Emily. Please." But she was already out the door, half running down the corridor, past the expensive paintings and antique furniture, past the life she'd never known could have been hers. Her work boots echoed on the marble floors as she fled, bursting through the mansion's front door into the cooling evening air. Behind her, in his office, Richard Walker stood alone. He picked up the photograph, running his thumb over the glass as he'd done 1,000 times before. But this time was different. This time, he'd found her, after 27 years of searching, of hoping, of living with a hole in his heart, the shape of a little girl in a field of sunflowers. He'd found her, and she'd run away from him, just like her mother had all those years ago. Richard sank into his chair, the photograph clutched against his chest, and for the first time in decades he let himself cry. Emily didn't sleep that night. She lay in her small cabin at the edge of the property, staring at the ceiling as moonlight crept through the thin curtains. Her mind kept circling back to that photograph, to Richard's gray eyes filled with decades of grief, to the impossible truth he'd spoken. That little girl was my daughter. How could it be true? And if it was true, why had her mother never told her? Grace Brooks had been many things. Tired, overworked, struggling, but she'd never been a liar. At least, Emily hadn't thought so. Now she wasn't sure of anything. For the next 3 days, Emily avoided Richard completely. She came to work before dawn and stayed in the far wings of the mansion. Cleaning rooms. She knew he never entered. When she heard his footsteps in the hallway, she'd slip into a closet or bathroom until he passed. It was childish, she knew, but she couldn't face him. Not yet. She threw herself into work with an intensity that made the other staff members exchange worried glances. By the 3rd day, she'd scrubbed the guest bathrooms twice, reorganized the linen closet, and polished every piece of silver in the dining room until her hands ached. But she couldn't scrub away the questions. On the 4th evening, as Emily was leaving through the kitchen door, she nearly ran into Richard standing on the back porch. He looked terrible, his usually neat hair disheveled, dark circles under his eyes, his shirt wrinkled like he'd slept in it. "Emily." His voice was rough. "Please, I need to talk to you." She clutched her bag tighter. "Mr. Walker, I don't think—" "Please." The word came out desperate, almost broken. "Just give me an hour. Let me explain. If you still want to leave after that, I won't stop you. I won't even speak to you again if that's what you want. But please, just let me tell you the truth." Something in his eyes, that same grief she'd seen in the office, made her pause, against every instinct telling her to run. She nodded. They sat on the porch steps as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Richard began. "I was 26 when I met your mother. She'd just started working here, helping with the gardens. My father had died the year before, and I was trying to figure out how to run this place. I was lonely, overwhelmed, and then there was Grace." He smiled, just a little, at the memory. "She was beautiful, but that's not what drew me to her. It was the way she talked to the flowers, like they were her friends, the way she hummed while she worked, the way she'd pack lunch for the other gardeners when she barely had enough for herself. She was kind in a way I'd never known." Emily felt tears prick her eyes. That sounded exactly like her mother. "We fell in love. It wasn't supposed to happen. She worked for me. There was the class difference, all of it. But when you love someone, none of that matters. We were careful, met in secret. We knew my mother would disapprove." "Margaret Walker," Emily said quietly. Richard's jaw tightened. "Yes, my mother was. She had very specific ideas about who I should marry, what kind of family was suitable. When Grace told me she was pregnant, I was terrified but happy. I wanted to marry her immediately, make it all official. I didn't care what anyone thought." He paused, his hands clenching into fists. "But I made a mistake. I told my mother first, thinking I could convince her, make her see reason. I thought if I stood firm, she'd have to accept it. What did she do? I'll never forget the look on her face. Pure disgust. She said Grace was a gold digger, that she'd trapped me on purpose, that she'd destroy our family's reputation. We fought for hours. Finally, I told her I was marrying Grace whether she liked it or not, and I stormed out." Richard's voice dropped. "I had a business meeting the next day in the city. I'd be gone overnight before I left. I went to Grace, told her everything. She was scared, but I promised her we'd figure it out together. I kissed her goodbye and told her I'd be back the next evening, and then we'd make plans." Emily could feel what was coming, could sense the tragedy in his pause. "When I got back, Grace was gone. Her room was empty. The other staff said she'd left that morning with a suitcase, got into a taxi, and didn't say where she was going. I was devastated. I went to my mother, demanded to know if she'd done something. Had she?" Richard nodded slowly. "She admitted it years later, on her deathbed, that morning after I left. My mother went to Grace. She offered her money, a lot of money, to disappear. She told Grace that I didn't really love her, that I'd only been using her, that I'd never acknowledged the baby. She said if Grace truly cared about me, she'd leave and let me marry someone appropriate." Emily felt sick, and my mother believed her. Grace was 22 years old, pregnant, and scared. My mother could be very convincing. She showed Grace newspaper articles about my family, about arranged marriages, about society expectations. She probably made it sound like staying would ruin both our lives. Richard's voice shook. "And Grace loved me enough to believe that leaving was the right thing to do." "Did you look for her?" "I searched everywhere. For months, then years, I hired private investigators. I called every hospital, every Grace Brooks I could find. But my mother had been thorough. She'd made Grace sign papers agreeing never to contact me or the family, made her change her name legally. The investigators hit dead ends everywhere." He turned to look at Emily directly. "I never stopped looking, even after my mother pressured me into marrying someone she approved of, a marriage that ended in divorce because I could never love anyone else. I kept searching. That photograph was all I had. I'd stare at it and wonder what my daughter looked like now, if she was okay, if she knew I'd wanted her." Tears were streaming down Emily's face now. "My mother never forgot you. Never. In her last days. when the morphine made her confused. She'd call out your name. She'd say, "Tell Richard I'm sorry. Tell him about Emily. Tell him she has his eyes." Richard's breath caught. She said that. I didn't understand it then. I was 10 years old and I'd never heard your name before, but she kept saying it. Over and over. "Richard, I'm sorry. Tell Richard." They both cried then. There on the porch steps, mourning Grace Brooks and all the years that had been stolen from them. "She worked so hard," Emily said through her tears. 2 jobs, sometimes 3. We lived in tiny apartments, never had much, but she always made sure I had what I needed. She made that apron by hand, saved for months to buy me that stupid plastic tiara because I'd seen it in a store window. She sounds like she was an amazing mother. She was, but she was tired all the time, and I think she was sad, like part of her was missing. Emily wiped her eyes. I used to ask about my father, and she'd get this look on her face, like she wanted to tell me but couldn't. She'd just say he was a good man who didn't know about me. She was protecting me, Richard said bitterly. Even after everything, she was protecting my reputation, or protecting me from a family that didn't want me. They sat in silence as the sky darkened, the first stars appearing overhead. Finally, Emily spoke. "I don't know what to do with this. I don't know how to process that. The man I've been cleaning floors for is my father. That this whole life could have been different." Richard turned to her. "I know I can't give you back those 27 years. I can't undo the poverty you faced, the loss of your mother, any of it. But Emily, if you'll let me, I want to be your father now. However you'll have me." Emily looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the same gray eyes she saw in the mirror every morning, the same stubborn set of the jaw, the same way of tucking hair behind the ear when nervous. "I'm scared," she whispered. "So am I. What if it's too late? What if we can't be what we're supposed to be? Then we'll figure out what we can be instead." Richard's voice was gentle. "But please don't leave. Don't disappear like your mother did. Give us a chance." Emily thought about her mother's last words, about forgiveness and love. She thought about the photograph of a little girl in sunflowers who didn't know yet how complicated life would become. "Okay," she said finally. "Okay, we can try." Richard let out a breath he seemed to have been holding for days. "Thank you." As they sat together in the gathering darkness, neither of them noticed the figure watching from an upstairs window. Madison Walker stood behind the curtain of her bedroom, her perfectly manicured hands clenched into fists, her face twisted with fury. She'd heard every word, and she knew exactly what she had to do. Madison Walker's hands trembled as she poured herself a glass of wine in her bedroom. The expensive crystal clinked against the bottle, betraying the rage that simmered beneath her composed exterior. Emily Walker. The name tasted like poison in her mind. She'd spent 32 years as the cherished daughter of the Walker family. Well, not by blood, but by circumstances that had worked perfectly in her favor. When her parents died in a car accident when she was 5, Margaret Walker had taken her in, raised her alongside Richard like she was his sister. The old woman had always said Madison would inherit half the estate when Richard's portion passed to her, since he had no children. No children. That had been the foundation of Madison's entire future. She took a long sip of wine and walked to her window, looking down at the porch where Richard and Emily still sat talking in the darkness. Even from here, she could see the resemblance. The same profile, the same gestures. It made her sick. Madison had overheard their entire conversation. Every word about Grace Brooks, about Margaret's manipulation, about the lost years and tearful reconciliation. She'd pressed her ear against the heating vent that connected her room to the porch roof, barely breathing as the truth she'd buried for 27 years came spilling out. But they didn't know the whole truth. They didn't know that Madison herself had been there that morning. Madison was 5 years old, small for her age, with a habit of hiding in places where adults forgot to look. That morning, the morning Grace Brooks left, Madison had been hiding in the hallway closet, playing with Margaret's old scarves when she'd heard voices in the drawing room. Margaret's voice, sharp and cold. "You need to understand, my dear, that Richard doesn't love you. He's infatuated. Yes, but men like him don't marry women like you. You'll only embarrass him." Then another voice, younger, frightened. "But he said, He promised. He promised in the heat of passion. Do you really think when his friends find out, when society discovers he's married the gardener, that he won't resent you? That he won't resent the child? A sound like crying. Madison had peered through the crack in the door and seen a young woman with blonde hair, her hands protectively over her stomach, tears streaming down her face. "Take this money," Margaret had continued, pushing an envelope across the table. "Start somewhere new. Give your child a life without the shame of being illegitimate, without the scandal. If you love Richard, you'll do what's best for him. What about what's best for our baby? Your baby will be better off without a father who's ashamed of it." Madison had watched Grace Brooks take the envelope with shaking hands, had watched her sign papers that Margaret slid across the table, had watched her walk out of the Walker mansion with a small suitcase, crying so hard she could barely see, and little Madison, hidden in her closet, had said nothing. Even at 5 years old, she'd understood what it meant. If that baby was gone, if Richard had no children, then Madison would always be the special one, the chosen one, the heir. So she'd kept quiet. For 27 years, she'd kept quiet now, standing at her window with expensive wine in hand. Madison felt that same cold calculation settling over her. Emily's appearance wasn't just an inconvenience, it was an existential threat. Madison had built her entire life around being a walker. She'd gone to the best schools on the family's money, traveled Europe on their dime, hosted charity galas in their name. She sat on the boards of 3 companies, not because of her business acumen, but because she was a walker. Her engagement to Thomas Whitmore, heir to another wealthy family, had only happened because of the Walker name and fortune. If Emily was recognized as Richard's legitimate daughter, everything changed. The will would be rewritten. The inheritance Madison had counted on would go to some girl who'd spent her life scrubbing toilets. The social standing, the respect, the future Madison had planned, all of it would crumble. Over her dead body, Madison finished her wine and set the glass down with deliberate care. She was good at this, at reading people, at finding weaknesses, at subtle manipulation. Margaret had taught her well. The old woman might have been cruel, but she'd been effective. Emily was vulnerable, poor, uneducated beyond high school, grieving her mother, desperate for family. That desperation was her weakness. And Richard. God, Richard was practically pathetic in his eagerness to embrace this girl. Neither of them would see what was coming. Madison pulled out her phone and began making calls. First, to her lawyer, David Chen. "David, I need you to research something for me. Quietly, I need to know about paternity laws, inheritance challenges, DNA test requirements. Hypothetically, if someone claimed to be a long-lost heir, what would it take to dispute it?" David's voice was cautious. "Madison, what's this about?" "Just research. I'll explain later. And David, discretion is important here." Next, she called Sandra Morrison, her closest friend and the biggest gossip in their social circle. "Sandra, darling, you'll never believe what's happening at the farm. Richard has this new obsession with one of the cleaning girls. It's rather concerning, actually. She's young, pretty in a plain sort of way. I'm worried she might be taking advantage of his grief over his divorce." Sandra gasped. "No. Do you think she's after his money? I hate to say it, but what else could it be? She's suddenly getting all this special attention, having private conversations with him. I just hope he sees through it before she causes real damage to the family." By the time Madison hung up, she knew the gossip would spread through their social circles like wildfire. By tomorrow, everyone who mattered would be talking about the opportunistic maid trying to seduce Richard Walker. But gossip alone wouldn't be enough. Madison needed something concrete. She walked to her desk and pulled out her laptop. Emily Brooks. She began searching. Social media, public records, anything she could find. There wasn't much. The girl had lived a quiet, unremarkable life. No criminal record, no scandal, barely any digital footprint. That was fine. Madison could create one. She opened a document and began typing, carefully crafting a narrative. Dates when equipment went missing from the farm, coinciding with days Emily worked. Small amounts of cash that couldn't be accounted for. Expensive items that disappeared from the mansion. She'd need to plant evidence, of course, but that would be easy enough. A piece of jewelry in Emily's cabin, some of Richard's cash hidden in her things. Madison had keys to everywhere on the property. Margaret had made sure of that years ago, saying family should always have access. At the time, Madison had thought it was about trust. Now she realized it had been about control. The old woman had taught her well indeed. As Madison planned, she felt no guilt. This wasn't personal. It was survival. Emily might be innocent, might genuinely believe she was Richard's daughter, but that didn't matter. In Madison's world, there were winners and losers, people who fought for what was theirs and people who got trampled. Madison had spent her entire life learning to be a winner. She wouldn't stop now. A knock on her door interrupted her thoughts. "Come in." Her assistant Cheryl poked her head in. "Miss Walker, I'm heading out. Do you need anything before I go?" Madison smiled. The same warm smile she'd perfected over years of charity events and society dinners. "No, thank you, Cheryl. Have a good evening." As soon as the door closed, the smile vanished. Madison returned to her computer, her fingers flying across the keyboard as she built her case against Emily Brooks. Piece by careful piece. Outside, the moon had risen fully, casting silver light across the Walker estate. In her small cabin, Emily was probably lying awake, processing everything Richard had told her, imagining a future where she finally belonged somewhere. In his office, Richard was likely staring at that photograph again, thanking whatever gods existed that he'd found his daughter. And in her elegant bedroom, Madison Walker was plotting their destruction with the cold efficiency of someone who'd learned from the very best how to protect what was hers. By the time dawn broke over Walker Farm, Madison had 17 pages of documentation, 5 phone calls scheduled for the morning, and a plan that would destroy Emily's credibility so thoroughly that even Richard would have to question her. Some people might call it cruel. Madison called it necessary, after all. She thought as she finally closed her laptop and prepared for bed. She'd kept Margaret's secret for 27 years. She'd been complicit in tearing apart Richard and Grace, in condemning Emily to a childhood of poverty and grief. What was a little more deception to protect everything she'd gained from that original sin? Madison Walker had chosen her path long ago, and she'd walk it all the way to the end, no matter who got crushed beneath her heels. The first whispers started 3 days after Madison overheard the conversation on the porch. Emily noticed it during her morning shift when she walked into the staff kitchen for coffee. The room had been filled with the usual chatter. Maria and Jose discussing their kids' soccer game, old Tom complaining about his aching back, Cheryl scrolling through her phone. But the moment Emily stepped through the doorway, silence fell like a curtain. "Morning," Emily said, reaching for a mug. "Morning," Maria replied, but her voice was tight. She exchanged a glance with Jose that Emily couldn't quite read. Tom grabbed his thermos and headed for the door. Better get to work. Within 30 seconds, the kitchen had emptied, leaving Emily alone with her coffee and a growing knot in her stomach. It was like that all week. Conversations that stopped when she approached, eyes that wouldn't quite meet hers. The friendly jokes and casual gossip she'd once been part of, gone, replaced by polite coldness. On Thursday, Emily found a note slipped under her cabin door. No signature, just 2 words in neat handwriting. Gold digger. Her hands shook as she crumpled the paper. Richard noticed the change too, over dinner that evening. A new ritual they'd started, eating together in the small breakfast room rather than the formal dining hall. He asked her about it. "The staff seems different around you lately. Has something happened?" Emily pushed her food around her plate. "I think people are talking. About us. About me. About why you're suddenly paying attention to the cleaning lady." She set down her fork. "Someone left a note calling me a gold digger." Richard's face darkened. "Who?" "I don't know. It wasn't signed. I'll talk to everyone tomorrow. Make it clear that—" "No." Emily's voice was firm. "That'll only make it worse. If you defend me, it'll look like I'm manipulating you. They need to see for themselves that I'm not whatever they think I am." But she didn't know how to prove something like that. How do you prove you're not after someone's money when simply accepting your father's dinner invitation looked suspicious? The answer came 2 days later when Emily discovered her cabin had been searched. She knew immediately. Her things weren't exactly where she'd left them. The stack of bills on her small desk was slightly askew. Her mother's old jewelry box, containing nothing valuable, just costume pieces and sentimental trinkets, sat at a different angle on the dresser. Her heart racing, Emily checked the box. Everything seemed to be there. Her mother's fake pearl necklace, a mood ring from childhood, the blue tiara from the photograph, now cracked and faded. Then she saw it. Tucked beneath the tiara was a diamond bracelet she'd never seen before. Delicate, expensive, unmistakably real. Emily's breath caught. She lifted it with trembling fingers, watching light scatter through the stones. This wasn't hers. She'd never owned anything this valuable in her life. Someone had planted it here. Emily's mind raced. Should she tell Richard? But what if people said she was lying? That she'd stolen it and was only confessing because she was about to get caught? What if this was a test? She was still holding the bracelet, paralyzed with indecision, when someone knocked on her door. "Emily, it's Mrs. Helena." Emily quickly shoved the bracelet back into the box and opened the door. Mrs. Helena was the oldest member of the household staff, a woman in her 70s who'd worked at Walker Farm for nearly 50 years. She had kind eyes and hands gnarled by arthritis. "Mrs. Helena? Hi, come in." The old woman stepped inside, glancing around the small cabin. "I won't stay long. I just wanted to talk to you, away from prying eyes." "About what?" Mrs. Helena sat heavily in the only chair. "I knew your mother, dear Grace Brooks. I worked with her in the gardens." Emily's heart skipped. "You did." She was a lovely girl, sweet, hardworking, and she loved Richard Walker more than anything in this world. Mrs. Helena's voice was soft with memory. "I saw them together sometimes, when they thought no one was looking, the way they looked at each other. That was real love. Why are you telling me this? Because people are saying ugly things about you, saying you're pretending to be Richard's daughter to get his money. But I see grace in you, the way you move, the way you bite your lip when you're nervous. You're her daughter, no question, which means you're Richard's too." Tears pricked Emily's eyes. "Thank you. I wish more people believed that. Some do. Some of us remember Grace. Remember how heartbroken Richard was when she left? We're just quieter than the gossips." Mrs. Helena stood, wincing as her knees creaked. "But you should be careful, dear. Not everyone wants this story to have a happy ending." "What do you mean?" The old woman paused at the door. "Miss Madison has been asking questions about you, about Grace, about inheritance laws. She's been making phone calls, meeting with lawyers, and yesterday, I saw her coming out of your cabin." Emily felt cold. "She was in here. I can't prove it. But I've worked in this house long enough to recognize scheming when I see it. Margaret Walker was a master at it, and she raised Madison in her image." Mrs. Helena's eyes were sad. "Watch yourself, Emily, and maybe tell Richard about anything strange that happens. He deserves to know what his cousin is doing." After Mrs. Helena left, Emily pulled out the bracelet again, staring at the diamonds that caught the lamplight. Now she understood. Madison had planted this. She was setting Emily up for theft, building a case to prove she was exactly what the rumors claimed, an opportunistic fraud. Emily's first instinct was to march straight to Richard, to tell him everything, but some deeper instinct made her pause. If she accused Madison without proof, it would look like paranoia. Madison would deny it, claim Emily was trying to turn Richard against his family. No, Emily needed to be smarter than that. She found a plastic bag in her small kitchen, carefully placed the bracelet inside, and wrote the date and time she'd found it on the bag with a marker. Then she took photos from every angle: the bracelet, the jewelry box, the position in her cabin. She documented everything. Only then did she text Richard, "Can we talk tomorrow?" Something happened. His response came immediately. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine. Just need advice. Come to breakfast." 8 a.m. That night, Emily lay awake, thinking about her mother. Grace Brooks had run from the Walker family's manipulation 27 years ago. She'd chosen poverty and struggle over fighting people who had all the power and money. But Emily wasn't her mother. She'd spent her whole life being invisible, taking care not to cause trouble, accepting whatever life handed her. But for the first time, she had something worth fighting for. A father who'd searched for her for decades, a chance to belong somewhere, a family she'd never known she had. If Madison Walker thought Emily would just disappear quietly, she was wrong. Emily might not have money or power or a fancy education, but she had something Madison didn't: the truth. And she'd learned from growing up poor that when you have nothing else, the truth is the most valuable thing you own. She'd just have to be patient. Let Madison make her moves, document everything. wait for the perfect moment to reveal what she knew. In chess, her mother used to say, pawns sometimes become queens. Emily intended to prove it. Across the property, in her elegant bedroom, Madison Walker was also awake, reviewing her plans. The bracelet was just the beginning. She had so much more prepared. Forged documents, planted evidence, testimonies from concerned staff members she'd paid off. Emily Brooks wouldn't know what hit her. By the time Madison was finished, Richard would see his supposed daughter for exactly what she was, a convincing fraud who'd almost destroyed their family. And Madison would be exactly where she'd always been meant to be, sole heir to the Walker fortune. Both women stared at their ceilings, plotting and planning, neither knowing that the real battle hadn't even begun yet. But it would soon, and when it did, only one of them would survive it. Emily arrived at the main house at 8 sharp, the plastic bag with the bracelet hidden in her jacket pocket. Richard was already in the breakfast room, coffee steaming in front of him. Yesterday's newspaper spread across the table. He looked tired, the kind of exhaustion that comes from worry rather than lack of sleep. Emily, he stood immediately. What happened? Your text worried me. She sat across from him, pulling out the bag and setting it on the table between them. I found this in my cabin 2 days ago, hidden in my mother's jewelry box. Richard picked up the bag, examining the bracelet through the plastic. His face went pale. This is Margaret's bracelet, the one she wore to every charity gala. It went missing after she died, and we assumed it had been misplaced during the estate sorting. I didn't take it. I swear to you, I've never seen it before in my life. I believe you. Richard's voice was immediate and firm. But how did it end up in your cabin? Emily told him everything. The searched cabin, Mrs. Helena's warning about Madison, the whispers among the staff. With each word, Richard's expression grew darker. Madison, he said finally, the name bitter on his tongue. She's trying to frame you. I think so, but I can't prove it. Emily leaned forward. Richard, if I accuse her without evidence, I look paranoid. If the bracelet disappeared and suddenly shows up in my possession, it looks like I stole it. Either way, she wins. Richard stood abruptly, pacing to the window. I'll confront her. Tell her I know what she's doing. And she'll deny it. She'll say I'm trying to turn you against your family, that I'm manipulating you. Emily's voice cracked slightly. She's already convinced half the staff I'm a gold digger. This is exactly what she wants. You defending me, choosing me over your family, it makes me look even more suspicious. Then what do we do? Emily took a deep breath. We prove I'm really your daughter. Not just with stories and memories, but with science, a DNA test. Richard turned from the window. You want to do a paternity test? It's the only way to end this. Madison can say whatever she wants about my motives, but she can't argue with DNA. Once we have proof, her accusations fall apart. And if... Richard hesitated. What if I'm wrong? What if the resemblance is coincidence and... Do you really believe that? Emily met his eyes. Look at me. Do you have any doubt? Richard studied her face, the gray eyes that matched his own, the stubborn set of her jaw, the way she tucked hair behind her ear when nervous. No, he said quietly. No doubt at all. You're my daughter. I know it in my bones. Then let's prove it to everyone else. Richard made the arrangements that afternoon, calling his personal physician and requesting complete discretion. They could have the results in 5 days. 5 days that felt like an eternity. But Madison wasn't waiting. 2 days after Emily and Richard submitted their DNA samples, a man in an expensive suit arrived at Walker Farm. Emily was cleaning the library when she heard voices in the entrance hall. Richard's, tense and angry, and another she didn't recognize. Mr. Walker, I'm simply here to discuss matters of estate planning and inheritance law. Surely there's no harm in that. Mr. Thompson, I know exactly why you're here, and you can tell Madison that her tactics won't work. Emily peered around the library door. The man, Mr. Thompson apparently, was tall and thin with silver hair and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He held a leather briefcase and exuded the confidence of someone who'd never lost an argument. I'm afraid I don't know what you mean. Miss Walker simply asked me to review the family's estate documents, given the recent developments. You mean, given that my daughter has returned? With respect, sir, you have no proof this young woman is your daughter. Only a rather convenient story, and some resemblance that could be coincidental. Mr. Thompson's smile sharpened. And given that substantial inheritance is involved, it would be irresponsible not to verify such claims thoroughly. We're doing a DNA test. Excellent. Though I should mention that DNA tests can be falsified, there have been cases... Get out of my house. Richard's voice was cold enough to freeze water. Mr. Thompson didn't flinch. Of course. But, Mr. Walker, you should know that questions are being raised. About Grace Brooks's character, her relationships. Whether she was as faithful as you remember, multiple people have come forward with information suggesting she had other romantic entanglements around the time of her pregnancy. Emily's stomach dropped. She stepped into the hallway. That's a lie. Mr. Thompson turned to her, his expression sympathetic in a way that felt like mockery. Miss Brooks, I understand this is difficult to hear about your mother, but we must consider all possibilities. A woman in Grace's position, young, unmarried, working for a wealthy man, might have had multiple relationships. It doesn't make her a bad person, but it does complicate matters of paternity. My mother loved Richard. Only Richard. She told me so herself. What a grieving 10-year-old remembers her dying mother saying is hardly reliable evidence. I'm afraid... Mr. Thompson opened his briefcase and pulled out several documents. These are sworn statements from people who worked here 27 years ago. They claim Grace was seen with other men, that she was known to be friendly with various workers. That's bullshit, Emily's voice cracked. Who are these people? What are their names? I'm not at liberty to disclose that without their permission. But these are credible witnesses, Miss Brooks. People with no reason to lie. Except the money Madison is probably paying them. Emily? Richard's hand on her shoulder was gentle but firm. Don't, he's baiting you. Mr. Thompson tucked the documents away. I'm simply ensuring all parties are protected legally. If Miss Brooks is indeed your daughter, Mr. Walker, then the DNA test will prove it, and we can all move forward happily. But if she's not, he let the implication hang in the air. Well, false paternity claims are taken very seriously, particularly when substantial estates are involved. Is that a threat? Emily asked. It's a statement of fact. False paternity claims can result in civil suits, even criminal charges in some cases. Fraud. Attempted theft through deception. Mr. Thompson's smile was razor thin. I'm sure a young woman of your limited means wouldn't want to face legal action from the Walker family. Richard stepped between them. I want you out of my house now. Thompson, and you tell Madison that if she continues this harassment, I'll be the one filing charges. No harassment intended, sir. Simply due diligence. Mr. Thompson headed for the door, then paused. The DNA results will be ready in 3 days, I understand. I look forward to reviewing them. Good day. After he left, Emily sank onto the entrance hall bench, shaking. He's going to find a way to discredit the test. I know it. He can try. Richard sat beside her. But Emily, DNA doesn't lie. When those results come back showing I'm your father, there's nothing Madison or her lawyer can do. You heard him. He'll claim it was falsified, or he'll find some other technicality. Emily's voice was hollow. And now there are people willing to testify that my mother was sleeping around. It doesn't matter if it's true. Once that story is out there, people will believe it. Anyone who knew Grace will know it's a lie. Mrs. Helena knows, maybe a few others. But how many people from 27 years ago still work here? How many remember? Madison only needs to create enough doubt. Emily looked at Richard. She's not trying to prove I'm not your daughter. She's trying to make it impossible to prove I am. Richard was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, Grace must have kept something. Papers, photos, letters, anything that could corroborate her story about us. I have some of her things. Not much. We moved around a lot. And after she died, I could only keep what fit in a small box. Emily's eyes widened. But there might be something. I never really looked through everything. Some of it was too painful. Would you be willing to look now? Emily nodded. I'll search tonight. That evening, Emily spread her mother's belongings across her cabin floor. It wasn't much. Some costume jewelry, a few photographs, Grace's social security card and old driver's license, a tattered address book, and at the bottom of the box, a small leather journal Emily had never opened. With trembling hands, she opened the journal. Her mother's handwriting filled the pages, looping and elegant, so achingly familiar that Emily's eyes filled with tears. Most entries were mundane: grocery lists, work schedules, reminders about Emily's school events. But then, tucked near the end, Emily found an envelope that had been glued to the back cover. The seal was broken. Inside was a letter, the paper yellowed with age, written in her mother's hand but never sent.
My dearest Richard, by the time you read this, if you ever do, I'll be long gone. Your mother came to me today. She offered me money to leave, and I took it, not because I don't love you, but because I do. She showed me the life you're meant to have. Society dinners,
the right kind of wife, children who won't be whispered about. She made me understand that my staying would ruin you, that you'd resent me eventually, resent our baby, that love isn't enough when the world is against you. I want you to know that I never regretted one moment we had together. You gave me the most beautiful gift, a child made from love. I'll tell her about you someday, when she's old enough to understand. I'll tell her that her father was a good man who never knew she existed. I'm sorry I wasn't strong enough to fight for us, but I'm strong enough to give you the future you deserve, even if it means I'm not in it. All my love, forever. Grace Emily read it 3 times, tears streaming down her face. Then she took a photo of it with her phone and sent it to Richard with a simple message. Found this. It's in my mother's handwriting, dated 3 weeks before I was born. His response came immediately. Oh, Grace. And then, this changes everything. But Emily, holding the letter her mother had never sent, wasn't so sure. Madison had lawyers and money and years of experience manipulating the truth. All Emily had was a letter from a dead woman and a DNA test that wouldn't arrive for 3 more days. 3 days that felt like forever. 3 days that would determine her entire future. The letter changed Richard. The next morning, he called an emergency staff meeting in the main hall, something that hadn't happened in years. Emily watched from the kitchen doorway as 23 employees gathered. Richard stood at the front, his posture rigid. I'm going to say this once, he began. Emily Brooks is my daughter, not some opportunist. My daughter, her mother was Grace Brooks, who worked here 27 years ago, and who I loved more than anything. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Madison stood near the back, her face a perfect mask of surprise. I know there have been rumors, Richard continued. Whispers about Emily's motives. Anyone spreading these lies will be terminated immediately. Is that understood? Maria, a housekeeper, raised her hand. Mr. Walker, how do we know she's really your daughter? We're doing a DNA test. Results in 2 days. And what if they're negative? James? The farm foreman asked. Richard's jaw tightened. They won't be. But I'm asking you now before those results, to treat Emily with the respect she deserves. After the meeting, Mrs. Helena approached Emily. That took courage. Madison won't forgive that. I didn't ask him to do it. I know. But he's your father. Of course he'd defend you. Mrs. Helena glanced around. I wanted you to know. I'm not the only one who remembers Grace, Tom. The groundskeeper, 72 now, remembers Grace and Richard together. Says he never saw Grace with anyone else. Emily's heart lifted. Would he testify? He'll put it in writing, so will Carla from the stables. And there's one more. Mrs. Helena lowered her voice. Bernard Walker, Richard's uncle, Margaret's brother-in-law. He's 86, in a nursing home in Charleston. His mind is sharp, and he was here when Grace worked at the farm. What did he say? Mrs. Helena smiled. He said, Margaret was a manipulative snake who destroyed that boy's happiness, and if her crimes are finally coming to light, I'll testify to every rotten thing she did. Emily felt hope stirring. Thank you for believing me. I'm doing it for Grace. She deserved better. Mrs. Helena patted her hand. And because Margaret ruled this house with fear too long, it's time for truth. That afternoon, Emily overheard voices in Richard's study. The door was slightly ajar. Can't seriously be considering this, Richard. An unfamiliar male voice. This girl comes out of nowhere, and you're ready to rewrite your entire will. Thomas. She's my daughter. Thomas, Richard's younger brother from California. You don't know that. Not yet. And even if the DNA test says so, consider the implications. Where has she been? What kind of life has she led? Living in poverty because my mother drove Grace away. That's Grace's version, according to what I heard. Grace was sleeping with half the staff. Something slammed. Richard's hand on the desk. Don't repeat those lies in my house. They're sworn testimonies from people who worked here. People Madison paid off. A pause. You think Madison is behind this? I know she is. Planting evidence, spreading rumors, hiring that lawyer. Or maybe she's being practical. Richard, think rationally. Madison has been family for 30 years. She's helped run the business, represented the Walker name everywhere. And now this stranger? She's not a stranger. She's my daughter. Even if that's true, she's a stranger to our world. She doesn't know how to be a Walker, handing her half your fortune when she hasn't earned it. That's not fair to Madison. Emily's hands clenched. She wanted to burst in, but stayed hidden. Madison dedicated her life to this family because she was raised to believe she'd inherit it, Richard said. That's not Emily's fault, but it's not Madison's fault either. She was a 5-year-old orphan. Give Emily something, a trust fund, a house. But dividing the estate equally, that's a slap in Madison's face. Everything Madison's done for us. Richard's voice was cold, like knowing Grace was out there and never saying anything. Madison admitted she overheard Margaret paying Grace to leave. She was 5 but remembers, and she never told me, not once in 27 years. Silence. She told you that. She let it slip during an argument. She wasn't a child 5 years ago or last year. She made a choice every day to keep that secret. Still, Richard. No, Emily is my daughter, my legitimate heir. She deserves everything she was denied. If you or Madison have a problem, take it up with the DNA results. Emily heard footsteps and ducked into the library. Thomas emerged, a man in his late 40s, well-dressed, with Richard's build but harder features. He looked angry. After he left, Emily stood alone, his words echoing. She doesn't know how to be a Walker. Maybe he was right. She'd grown up in poverty, worn secondhand clothes, worked minimum wage since 16. What did she know about charity galas and business decisions? But then she thought about her mother, Grace Brooks, who'd worked with dirt under her fingernails and dreams in her heart, who'd loved above her station and paid the price, who'd raised a daughter alone with dignity and strength. Emily might not know how to be a Walker, but she knew how to be Grace Brooks's daughter, and maybe that was enough. That evening, James knocked on her cabin door. Mr. Walker said you might need help with your mother's things. Boxes, supplies. That's kind of him, and you. James nodded, then paused. For what it's worth, I remember your mother, not well. I was just starting here, but I remember she was kind to everyone, and Mr. Walker was different around her. Happy. Real happy. Thank you. I also remember when she left. Mr. Walker was a mess for months. A man doesn't act like that unless he really loved someone. So maybe there's truth to your story. It wasn't quite an endorsement, but it was something. The DNA results will prove it, Emily said. Maybe so. James turned to leave, then looked back. But Miss Brooks, Madison's smart and she's mean. Whatever you think she's planning, it's probably worse. Watch yourself. After he left, Emily thought about allies and traitors. Mrs. Helena, Tom, Carla, Bernard, James. People willing to speak truth. But Thomas was against her. Half the staff was suspicious, and Madison had money, connections, 27 years of being a Walker. The DNA results would come in 2 days. 2 days to prove she belonged, or 2 days before Madison destroyed everything. The day before the DNA results were due, Madison made her mistake. Emily was walking past the drawing room when she heard Madison's voice, sharp and agitated, coming from inside. The door was cracked open just enough to see Madison pacing with her phone pressed to her ear. I don't care what it costs, David. Find something we can use. There has to be a way to challenge the results. A pause. What do you mean it's ironclad? DNA tests can be questioned. Lab errors. Chain of custody issues. Something. Emily froze in the hallway, barely breathing. Madison's voice grew more desperate. You don't understand what's at stake here. Richard is talking about changing his will. Everything I've worked for. Everything I've built. It's all going to some girl who showed up 2 weeks ago with a convenient sob story. Another pause as she listened. No, I don't think she's deliberately lying. I think she actually believes it, which makes it worse, because Richard believes it too. Madison stopped pacing, her back to the door. Grace Brooks was a manipulative little. She probably slept with half a dozen men and picked Richard as the father because he was the richest one. Now her daughter is doing the same thing. Emily's hands clenched into fists. She should walk away, but she couldn't move. The letter proves nothing, Madison continued. It's just Grace's word, and she's conveniently dead so she can't be questioned. And even if Grace believed Richard was the father, that doesn't mean he actually was. Women lie about paternity all the time. A longer pause. When Madison spoke again, her voice had changed, gone cold and calculating. What if the DNA test never makes it to Richard? What if there's an accident with the results? The lab could lose them, or they could be damaged in transit. Then we'd have to retest, which buys us more time to... What? No, I'm not suggesting we tamper with evidence. I'm suggesting that sometimes things get lost. Emily's heart pounded. Madison was talking about destroying the DNA results. Fine, but David, you need to understand something. Madison's voice dropped lower, and Emily had to strain to hear. When I was 5 years old, I watched Margaret Walker pay Grace Brooks to disappear. I was hiding in the hallway closet, and I heard every word. Margaret told Grace that Richard didn't love her, that she was ruining his life, that the baby would be better off without a father who resented it. Emily's breath caught. This was the confirmation Richard had suspected, but Madison had never fully admitted. Grace took the money and left, and I never said anything. Not to Richard, not to anyone, because even at 5 years old, I understood what it meant. If that baby was gone, if Richard never had children, then I would inherit everything. The farm, the money, the Walker name, all of it. Silence. Then Madison laughed, but it was a bitter, ugly sound. Oh, don't give me that look, David. You didn't see what my life was like before the Walkers took me in. My parents were nobody. My father was a mechanic. My mother worked at a grocery store. When they died, I had nothing. Margaret gave me everything. Private schools, European vacations, a future. Do you really think I was going to throw that away for some maid's bastard? Emily felt sick. Madison had known for 27 years. She'd known about Grace, about the baby, about Margaret's cruelty, and she'd chosen her inheritance over the truth. I don't feel guilty, Madison said firmly. Grace made her choice when she took that money. She could have fought for Richard, could have refused to leave, but she didn't. She took the easy way out, and her daughter grew up poor. That's not my fault. Another pause. The DNA results come tomorrow, if they're positive. When they're positive, we need a backup plan. Maybe we can prove Emily is unstable, or that she has a criminal history we haven't uncovered yet. There has to be something. Run a deeper background check. Look into her mother's history too. Every boyfriend Grace had. Every place she worked. If we can show a pattern of deception or instability, we can argue that Emily isn't fit to inherit regardless of biology. Emily had heard enough. She pulled out her phone with trembling hands and started recording, backing up a few steps so she was out of sight, but could still hear Madison's voice clearly. I've worked too hard to lose everything now, Madison said. Margaret raised me to be a Walker. This is my family, my legacy. I don't care if Emily shares Richard's DNA. Biology doesn't make her one of us. She'll never understand what it means to carry this name, to represent this family. She's trailer trash trying to play dress up, and I won't let her destroy everything Margaret built. The words kept coming, each one more damning than the last. Madison talked about the bracelet she'd planted, about the staff members she'd paid to spread rumors, about the witnesses who'd sworn Grace had multiple lovers. All lies she'd orchestrated. The beauty of it, Madison said, is that Richard can't prove any of it came from me. I've been careful. Everything goes through intermediaries, he suspects. But suspicion isn't proof. Emily's phone timer showed she'd been recording for 7 minutes. 7 minutes of Madison confessing everything. Her knowledge of Margaret's manipulation. Her deliberate silence for 27 years. Her campaign to destroy Emily's credibility. Her plans to challenge the DNA results. It was more than enough. Emily stopped recording and quietly backed away from the door. Her whole body was shaking, with anger, with vindication, with a sick sort of relief. She'd been right about Madison all along, and now she had proof. She needed to find Richard immediately. Richard was in the stables, checking on one of the horses that had been limping. Emily found him running his hands down the mare's leg, murmuring to her softly, "Richard." Her voice came out strangled. He looked up, immediately concerned. "Emily, what's wrong? You're pale. I need you to listen to something." She held out her phone with shaking hands. "All of it. Don't interrupt. Just listen." Richard's expression changed as he listened to the recording. Emily watched the color drain from his face, watched his jaw clench tighter and tighter, watched his hands curl into fists. When Madison's voice said, "When I was 5 years old, I watched Margaret Walker pay Grace Brooks to disappear." Richard closed his eyes. The recording played on. 7 minutes of Madison condemning herself with her own words. When it finally ended, Richard was silent for a long moment. "How long ago did you record this?" His voice was carefully controlled, but Emily could hear the rage underneath. 10 minutes ago, she was in the drawing room talking to her lawyer. "David Chen, of course." Richard handed back the phone. "Forward that to me, right now." Emily did. Richard's phone pinged with the message. He listened to it again, his face like stone. She admitted it. He said quietly, "Everything. Not just that she knew about Grace and kept quiet. She orchestrated this whole campaign against you. The rumors, the planted evidence, the fake witnesses, all of it. What are we going to do?" Richard looked at her, and Emily saw something in his eyes she'd never seen before. Not grief, not anger, but something colder. Determination. "Tomorrow, the DNA results arrive. I was going to wait, to have a private moment with you when we got the news. But I think we need to do this differently now." Richard pulled out his phone. "I'm calling everyone, family, staff, Madison's lawyer, everyone who's been whispering and doubting and spreading lies. We're going to have a meeting tomorrow evening, a formal gathering." "Richard, what are you planning?" "I'm going to give Madison exactly what she wants, a public confrontation, in front of everyone who matters." His voice was ice cold. "She's spent weeks destroying your reputation. Tomorrow, I'm going to destroy hers." Emily felt a flutter of fear mixed with anticipation. "The recording. Is it legal? Can we use it? We're in a one-party consent state for recordings. You were present. You recorded it. It's legal. And even if it wasn't, I don't care." Richard's eyes were hard. "Madison has spent 27 years complicit in the worst thing my mother ever did. She watched me suffer, watched me search desperately for my daughter, and she said nothing. She let me marry a woman I didn't love, let me live half a life, also she could keep her position as heir." He looked down at the phone in his hand. "Grace wrote in that letter that she wasn't strong enough to fight, that she chose to leave rather than battle my mother." Richard's voice cracked slightly. "But you're not Grace, Emily. You're stronger than she was. And this time, we're not running. This time, we're fighting. What if it goes wrong? What if it won't?" Richard met her eyes. "The DNA results will prove you're my daughter. The recording proves Madison's guilt. And tomorrow, everyone is going to know the truth. All of it." Emily nodded slowly. "Tomorrow. Everything would come to a head tomorrow. One way or another. This would end." "I'm scared," she admitted. "So am I." Richard put a hand on her shoulder. "But we're scared together, and that makes all the difference." As they walked back toward the house, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. Emily thought about her mother, about Grace Brooks, who'd walked away from this place 27 years ago with nothing but a suitcase and a broken heart. Tomorrow, Emily would stand where her mother couldn't. Tomorrow, she would fight. And tomorrow, Madison Walker would finally face the consequences of 27 years of silence and lies. The morning of the confrontation arrived with unseasonably warm weather. Emily woke before dawn, her stomach in knots. She'd barely slept, replaying Madison's recorded confession over and over in her mind. Today, everything would change. She showered and dressed carefully, choosing a simple navy dress her mother had bought her years ago for a job interview. It was one of the few nice things Emily owned, and wearing it felt like having Grace with her. She needed that strength today. The DNA results had arrived by courier at 7 a.m. Emily knew because she'd been watching from her cabin window, had seen Richard sign for the envelope with hands that shook slightly. He hadn't opened it. Not yet. He was waiting for tonight. For the gathering. For the moment when everything would be revealed. Emily's phone buzzed with a text. Breakfast. Need to make sure you eat something. She smiled despite her nerves. Richard was already acting like a father, worrying about whether she'd eaten, whether she was okay. It was strange and wonderful and terrifying all at once. Be there in 10, she texted back. They ate in the small breakfast room, neither of them talking much. The sealed envelope sat on the table between them like a live grenade. Aren't you tempted to open it? Emily finally asked. Terrified to. Actually, Richard looked at the envelope. I know what it's going to say, but there's a difference between knowing and knowing. You know, Emily did know. Once that envelope was opened, everything became real and official and permanent. There would be no more wondering, no more hoping, just truth. What time did you tell everyone? She asked. 6 o'clock in the main hall. Richard checked his watch. It was barely 8 in the morning. 10 hours. 10 hours felt like forever, and no time at all. I called Bernard this morning, Richard said. My uncle, Mrs. Helena, gave me his number. He's 90 minutes away, but he insisted on coming, said he wouldn't miss this for the world. What did you tell him? The truth, that I found my daughter, that Madison has been lying for 27 years, and that tonight I'm exposing everything. Richard's smile was grim. He laughed, said it was about time someone stood up to Margaret's legacy of manipulation. Emily pushed eggs around her plate. What if people don't believe the recording? What if they think I faked it somehow? Then we'll deal with it. But Emily, you can hear it's clearly Madison's voice, and she confesses to things only she would know. Details about the bracelet, about the witnesses she paid off. There's no way to fake that. Your brother Thomas will try to defend her. Let him try. Richard's voice was steel. Thomas has always taken the easy path, always sided with whoever had the most power. But tonight, the power shifts. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Richard said, After tonight, your life is going to change dramatically. You understand that, right? Once everyone knows you're my daughter, you won't just be Emily Brooks anymore. You'll be Emily Walker, heir to a substantial fortune. People will treat you differently, expect things from you. I'm not sure I want that. I know, but it's yours whether you want it or not. This is your birthright, Emily. What Grace and I made together. Richard reached across the table and took her hand. But I want you to know. The money, the inheritance, none of that matters to me. If you walked away from every penny, I'd still want you in my life. You're my daughter. That's all that matters. Emily felt tears prick her eyes. Thank you. For what? For not giving up? For searching for 27 years? For believing me when I showed up as a stranger claiming to be your daughter? She squeezed his hand. For being the father my mother told me you were, even when you didn't know I existed. Richard's eyes were bright with unshed tears. Grace raised an incredible daughter. I wish she could be here to see this. I think she is, Emily said softly. Somehow, the rest of the day crawled by. Emily tried to work, to keep busy, but she couldn't focus. She cleaned the same bathroom twice, reorganized the linen closet 3 times, and finally gave up and retreated to her cabin at 3 o'clock. Mrs. Helena knocked on her door. I brought you some tea, the old woman said, carrying a tray. Thought you might need some company before tonight. Emily let her in gratefully. They sat together, drinking tea that was too hot and too sweet, and Mrs. Helena told stories about Grace. She used to sing while she worked. Mrs. Helena said, old country songs, the kind her grandmother taught her. She had a lovely voice. Sometimes I'd find her in the gardens at dawn, singing to the flowers like they were her children. The old woman smiled. Richard would stand at his window and listen. I caught him once, just watching her with this look on his face like he'd seen an angel. Did you know they were together? Some of us suspected. They tried to hide it. But love like that, it's hard to conceal. The way they'd look at each other when they thought no one was watching. The way Richard's whole face would light up when Grace walked into a room. Mrs. Helena shook her head. And then Margaret found out. And everything went to hell. Did you know what Margaret did? That she paid my mother to leave. I suspected Margaret was capable of anything when it came to protecting the family reputation. But I didn't know for certain until you arrived and the truth started coming out. Mrs. Helena set down her teacup. I should have done more. Should have questioned things, pushed back. But I was just staff, and Margaret Walker didn't tolerate questions from staff. It wasn't your fault. Maybe not, but I've regretted it for 27 years anyway. Mrs. Helena looked at Emily. Your mother was good people. The best, and you're just like her, strong and kind and too forgiving for your own good. But tonight, don't be forgiving. Tonight, make them all see what they did, what they took from you and Richard and Grace. Emily nodded, feeling the weight of what was coming. At 5:30, Emily changed into her navy dress again and walked to the main house. Her legs felt shaky, her stomach was in knots, but she kept moving forward, one step at a time. Richard met her at the entrance. He'd changed into a suit, something Emily had never seen him wear before. He looked formal, imposing, every inch the wealthy landowner he was. Ready? He asked. No, but let's do it anyway. They walked together to the main hall, where chairs had been arranged in a semicircle facing a small table. On the table sat the sealed envelope with the DNA results. Next to it was Richard's laptop, queued up to play the recording. People began arriving. Staff members filed in quietly, taking seats near the back. Thomas arrived with his wife, both of them looking annoyed at being summoned. Mr. Thompson, Madison's lawyer, came in with his briefcase, his expression professionally neutral. Bernard Walker arrived in a wheelchair, pushed by a nurse. He was ancient, his face a map of wrinkles, but his eyes were sharp and bright. When he saw Richard, he smiled. There's my nephew. About damn time you stood up for yourself, Uncle Bernard. Thank you for coming. Wouldn't miss it. Bernard's eyes found Emily. And you must be Grace's girl. You look just like her, you know. Same eyes, same spirit. Your mother was a fighter, even when she was scared. I see that in you too. Emily felt something warm bloom in her chest. Thank you, sir. Call me Bernard. We're family. More people arrived. Staff members Emily recognized and some she didn't. A few faces from town. Prominent citizens Richard had invited. People who'd known Margaret and the Walker family for decades. And then, at exactly 6 o'clock, Madison arrived. She swept into the room like she owned it, dressed in an expensive cream-colored suit, her hair perfect, her makeup flawless. She looked every inch the Walker heir, confident and composed, until she saw the assembled crowd. Then something flickered in her eyes. Confusion, followed quickly by wariness. Richard, what is this? She asked, her voice carefully controlled. Have a seat, Madison. This won't take long. I don't understand. You called an emergency family meeting, but half the staff is here. And why is Uncle Bernard? Sit down. Richard's voice cracked like a whip. Madison sat, her composure slipping slightly. Richard stood at the front of the room, Emily beside him. He looked at the assembled crowd, family, staff, witnesses to everything that was about to unfold. Thank you all for coming on short notice, he began. I've called you here because it's time for some truths to be spoken. Truths that have been buried for 27 years. He picked up the sealed envelope. This contains the results of a DNA paternity test between me and Emily Brooks. He looked directly at Madison. Or should I say, Emily Walker. Madison's face went pale. But before we open this, Richard continued, there's something else you all need to hear. He opened his laptop and turned up the volume. Madison's voice filled the room. When I was 5 years old, I watched Margaret Walker pay Grace Brooks to disappear. As the recording played, Emily watched the color drain from Madison's face, watched her perfect composure crack and crumble, watched her realize that her own words were destroying her. 7 minutes of confession, 7 minutes of lies exposed. When it ended, the room was silent. Then Richard picked up the envelope and tore it open. The storm was about to break. The silence after the recording was deafening. Every eye in the room was fixed on Madison, who sat frozen in her chair. Her perfect composure shattered like glass. Richard pulled the paper from the envelope, his hand steady despite the weight of the moment. He read silently first, his eyes scanning the page. Then he looked up at the assembled crowd. The results of the DNA paternity test between Richard Walker and Emily Brooks. His voice was clear and strong. Probability of paternity, 99th and 97%. A collective gasp rippled through the room. Emily felt her knees go weak. She'd known, had believed with everything in her, but hearing it confirmed, seeing the relief and joy flood Richard's face, made it real in a way nothing else could. "She's my daughter," Richard said, his voice breaking slightly. "Emily is my daughter." He turned to her, and Emily saw tears streaming down his face. Without thinking, she stepped forward, and he pulled her into a tight embrace. The room erupted in murmurs and whispers, but Emily barely heard them. All she could hear was Richard's voice in her ear, repeating over and over, my daughter, you're really my daughter." When they finally pulled apart, Emily was crying too. She looked out at the assembled crowd. Some faces showed genuine happiness, others shock, others skepticism. But it didn't matter. The truth was out. Richard turned back to face the room, one arm still around Emily's shoulders. "For those of you who just heard that recording, you now know the truth about what happened 27 years ago. My mother, Margaret Walker, paid Grace Brooks to disappear when she was pregnant with my child. She lied to me, told me Grace had left willingly, that she wanted nothing to do with me or the baby. I spent 27 years searching for my daughter, and all that time, Madison knew the truth." All eyes turned to Madison. She sat motionless, her face pale as death, her carefully manicured hands clenched in her lap. "Madison," Richard's voice was cold, "would you like to explain yourself?" Madison's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Mr. Thompson, her lawyer, leaned over and whispered something in her ear. She shook her head violently. Her voice was barely a whisper. "I was 5 years old." "You were 5 when you overheard Margaret paying Grace to leave," Richard agreed. "But you weren't 5 last year, or 5 years ago, or 10 years ago. You were an adult, Madison. An adult who made a choice every single day to keep that secret." "I didn't think it mattered anymore," Madison said, her voice gaining strength. "Grace was gone. The baby was gone. What difference would it make to tell you?" "What difference?" Emily stepped forward, her own voice shaking with anger. "My mother raised me alone in poverty. She worked herself to death trying to give me a decent life. She died when I was 10 years old, and I've been alone ever since. You could have told Richard the truth at any point, and he would have found us. My mother might still be alive if she'd had his support, his resources, but you said nothing because you wanted the inheritance." "That's not," Madison started, but Emily cut her off. "We all just heard the recording. You admitted everything, that you kept quiet to protect your position as heir, that you've been orchestrating this whole campaign against me. The planted bracelet, the false witnesses, the rumors about my mother. You did all of that to protect money that was never yours to begin with." Madison's face flushed red. "I was raised in this family. Margaret took me in when I had nothing. She gave me everything. Education, opportunities, a future. I earned my place here. By lying for 27 years, Bernard's voice rang out from his wheelchair. All heads turned to the old man. "Madison, I loved my brother, but Margaret was a cold, manipulative woman who cared more about appearances than people. She destroyed Richard and Grace's happiness, condemned an innocent child to poverty, and twisted you into someone willing to perpetuate that cruelty. Uncle Bernard, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. I watched Margaret control this family for decades. I watched her drive away anyone who didn't meet her impossible standards. And I watched Richard suffer." Bernard wheeled himself closer to Madison. "You had a choice, girl. Every day for 27 years you had a choice. And every day, you chose yourself over the truth." Thomas stood up abruptly. "This is ridiculous. So Madison kept a childhood secret. That doesn't make her a criminal. And as for this girl," he gestured at Emily, "DNA test or not, she's still a stranger to this family. She has no idea how to be a Walker, no understanding of our responsibilities and obligations." "Sit down, Thomas," Richard said quietly. "No, I won't sit down. You're talking about rewriting your will, about giving half of everything to someone who's been here for 2 weeks. Madison has been part of this family for 30 years. She's earned her place here. She's worked for it, represented the Walker name with dignity. By planting evidence to frame my daughter for theft." Richard's voice was ice. by paying people to lie about Grace's character, by conspiring with her lawyer to destroy or discredit the DNA results. That's your definition of dignity, Thomas faltered. She was protecting herself, protecting the family from a potential fraud. The only fraud here is Madison, Bernard said, and anyone defending her is either blind or complicit. Mrs. Helena stood up from the back of the room. I'd like to say something, if I may. Richard nodded. The old woman walked to the front, moving slowly but steadily. I worked with Grace Brooks. I saw her and Richard together, and I want everyone here to know. Grace was one of the finest people I've ever known. She was kind, honest, and hardworking. The lies that have been spread about her, suggesting she had multiple partners, that she was manipulative or deceptive. Those are vicious lies, and anyone who knew her knows it. Thank you, Mrs. Helena, Richard said quietly. James, the foreman, stood next. I remember Grace too, and I remember how destroyed Mr. Walker was when she left. A man doesn't fall apart like that over someone he didn't truly love. I believe Miss Brooks is his daughter, and I'm ashamed I ever doubted her. One by one, other staff members stood and voiced their support. Tom, the groundskeeper, Cheryl, despite being Madison's assistant, even Maria, who'd been cold to Emily for weeks, stood and apologized. Madison watched it all, her empire crumbling around her. When the last person sat down, she finally spoke, her voice hollow. What do you want from me, Richard? I want you to leave, Richard said simply. Tonight, pack your things and leave Walker Farm. You're no longer welcome here. You're kicking me out. This is my home. This was never your home. It was Margaret's manipulation that made you think it was. Richard's voice was firm but not cruel. You'll receive a settlement, enough to live comfortably, but you will not inherit any part of this estate. You will not be part of this family, and if you ever attempt to contact Emily with threats or harassment, I will pursue legal action for everything you've done. Mr. Thompson stood. Mr. Walker? Surely we can discuss this more reasonably. Miss Walker is willing to apologize. I don't want her apology, Richard said. I want her gone. Madison stood slowly, her legs unsteady. She looked at Richard, then at Emily, and for just a moment, Emily saw something that might have been genuine remorse flash across her face. I'm sorry, Madison whispered. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. It's not worth much, Richard replied, but it's a start. Maybe someday, years from now, you'll understand what you did, what you took from all of us. Madison nodded once, then turned and walked out of the room. Mr. Thompson hurried after her, still clutching his briefcase. Thomas hesitated, looking between Richard and the door where Madison had disappeared, then followed his cousin out. The room remained silent for a long moment after they left. Then Bernard wheeled himself forward. Well, that was long overdue. He looked up at Emily. Welcome to the family, my dear. It's a mess, as you can see, but it's yours now. Emily laughed, a slightly hysterical sound. Thank you, I think. Now then, Bernard said, louder, addressing the room. I believe this calls for a celebration, Richard. Break out the good champagne. Let's toast to truth, to family, and to Grace Brooks, a woman who deserved so much better than she got, but who gave us this remarkable young woman. To Grace, Richard said softly, looking at Emily with tears in his eyes. And to Emily, my daughter, finally home. The room erupted in applause and cheers. Staff members came forward to congratulate Emily, to shake Richard's hand, to celebrate the end of Madison's reign of deception. As the champagne flowed and people laughed and talked, Emily stood beside Richard and felt, for the first time in her life, like she truly belonged somewhere. The battle was over. The truth had won, and Emily Walker was finally home. 6 months had passed since the confrontation that changed everything. Emily stood at the edge of the sunflower field she'd planted behind the mansion, watching the golden blooms sway in the late afternoon breeze. The field stretched for nearly an acre now, hundreds of sunflowers turning their faces toward the sun, just like in the photograph that had started it all. At the center of the field stood a simple white cross with Grace Brooks's name and dates carved into the wood. Beneath her name, Richard had insisted on adding, "Beloved mother, cherished love, never forgotten." Emily visited the memorial every day, sometimes just standing in silence, sometimes talking to her mother about everything that had happened. Today, she wasn't alone. "I think she would have loved this," Richard said, coming to stand beside her. He'd aged in the past 6 months, but in a good way. The lines of grief and loss on his face had softened, replaced by something that looked like peace. "She always loved sunflowers," Emily said. "When I was little, she'd take me to this field behind our apartment building. Just wild sunflowers that nobody owned. She'd make up stories about them. Said each one was a person's hopes and dreams reaching toward the light." Richard smiled. "That sounds like Grace, always finding beauty in simple things." They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the flowers dance in the wind. Emily still lived in her small cabin, had insisted on it, despite Richard's offers to move her into the mansion. She wasn't ready for that yet. Maybe she never would be. But she had dinner with Richard every evening, and they'd fallen into an easy rhythm of learning each other, filling in the gaps of 27 lost years. "Mrs. Helena told me you established the Grace Brooks Foundation," Richard said. Emily nodded. "It helps single mothers with education expenses, childcare, medical bills, the kind of support my mother never had." She glanced at Richard. "I hope that's okay. I know I should have discussed it with you first, but, Emily, that money is yours to do with as you wish, and I think it's perfect. Grace would be so proud." He paused. "I'd like to match whatever you've committed. Make it a family foundation. You don't have to. I know I don't. But I want to. It's a way of honoring her, of trying to make up for." He trailed off, his voice catching. Emily took his hand. "You don't have to make up for anything. What happened wasn't your fault. Your mother made choices, terrible choices, but you didn't know. You searched for us. You never gave up." Emily squeezed his hand. "My mom knew that. In her letter, she said you were a good man. She was right." Richard's eyes were bright with tears. They'd had this conversation in various forms over the past 6 months, but some wounds took time to heal. Emily understood that better than anyone. "Have you heard from Madison?" she asked, changing the subject. "Her lawyer sent the paperwork for the settlement last month. She signed everything, didn't contest any of it." Richard's voice was neutral. "I heard she moved to Boston, teaching at a private school. Do you think she'll ever apologize? Really apologize?" "I don't know. Maybe. Or maybe she'll spend the rest of her life justifying what she did." Richard shrugged. "Either way, she's not our problem anymore." Thomas had also left Walker Farm, returning to California with his wife. The rift between the brothers hadn't healed. Might never heal. But Emily had stopped feeling guilty about it. She hadn't divided this family. The divisions had been there long before she arrived, buried under layers of secrets and lies. "I have something for you," Richard said, pulling a small box from his pocket. "I've been waiting for the right moment." Emily opened it to find a delicate gold necklace with a small sunflower pendant. "Richard, it's beautiful. It was your grandmother's, not Margaret. My father's mother. She died when I was young, but I remember she was kind. The complete opposite of Margaret." He helped Emily clasp it around her neck. "I want you to have it. You're carrying on a better Walker legacy, the kind of legacy Grace would have wanted for you." Emily touched the pendant, feeling the weight of family history, both the painful parts and the precious ones. "Thank you." They turned back toward the house as the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Halfway there, they met Mrs. Helena, coming toward them with a basket. "I brought dinner," the old woman announced. "Thought we could eat outside on a nice evening like this." "We?" Emily asked. "Well, I invited a few people. Hope you don't mind." Soon, the area near the sunflower field was filled with people. James and his family, Tom and his wife, Cheryl, Bernard in his wheelchair with his nurse, and several other staff members who'd become Emily's friends over the past months. Someone had brought a guitar, and soon there was music and laughter floating across the field. Emily sat on a blanket between Richard and Mrs. Helena, eating potato salad and listening to James tell terrible jokes that made everyone groan. This, she thought, was what family was supposed to feel like. Not the cold formality of the mansion's dining room. Not the social climbing and status-seeking that Madison had represented. Just people who cared about each other, sharing a meal as the sun went down. "You look happy, Mrs. Helena said quietly. "I am," Emily replied. surprised to realize it was completely true. 6 months ago, she'd been a cleaning lady with no family and no real future. Now she was Emily Walker, with a father who loved her, friends who supported her, and the freedom to build whatever life she wanted. "Your mother would be so happy to see this," Mrs. Helena said. "To see you and Richard together, to see you thriving. I wish she could be here. Maybe she is in her own way." Mrs. Helena patted Emily's hand. "I believe the people we love never truly leave us. They live on in the choices we make, the kindness we show, the love we share." As darkness fell, someone lit candles, and the gathering took on an almost magical quality. Emily looked around at the faces illuminated by candlelight. Her father laughing at something Bernard said, James's kids running through the grass, Cheryl and Maria chatting like old friends. Later, when most people had left, and it was just Emily and Richard sitting in the quiet darkness, he said, "I found something yesterday, in the attic. I wanted to show you." He pulled out a photograph, old and faded, the colors washed out by time. It showed a young Richard and an even younger Grace standing in front of the mansion's garden. They were both laughing, Richard's arm around Grace's waist, her head tilted toward his shoulder. They looked impossibly young and impossibly happy. "I forgot this existed," Richard said softly. "Margaret must have missed it when she was destroying evidence, or maybe she kept it to remind herself of what she'd ruined." Emily stared at the photograph, seeing her mother's face radiant with joy. She looked so happy. "We both were. For a little while we had something perfect." Richard looked at Emily, and even though it ended badly, even though we lost so many years, I can't regret it, because it gave me you. Emily leaned against her father's shoulder, just like Grace had in the photograph. "Do you think she forgave you for not finding her?" "I think she never blamed me in the first place. That's who she was. Kind enough to forgive even when forgiveness wasn't necessary." Richard was quiet for a moment. "But I hope she knows I never stopped looking, that I never stopped loving her, that I would have given anything to have her and you in my life." "She knew," Emily said with certainty. "She told me so in those last days, when she kept saying your name. She was trying to tell me, trying to make sure I knew I came from love." They sat together as the stars came out, the candlelight flickering across the sunflower field. Somewhere in the distance, a night bird called. The air smelled like earth and flowers and summer evenings. Emily thought about all the what-ifs. What if Margaret hadn't been cruel? What if Grace had stayed and fought? What if Madison had spoken up years ago? What if Emily had never taken that job at Walker Farm? But dwelling on what-ifs wouldn't change anything. This was the life she had. Imperfect, complicated, built from the ruins of past mistakes and lost years. But it was hers, and it was good. "I love you, Dad," Emily said, the words still feeling new and wonderful in her mouth. Richard's voice was thick with emotion. "I love you too, sweetheart. So much." As they walked back toward the house together, Emily turned for one last look at the sunflower field, at Grace's memorial surrounded by golden blooms. The flowers swayed in the night breeze, their faces turned toward where the sun would rise again tomorrow. Her mother had been right all along, hopes and dreams reaching toward the light. And sometimes, if you held on long enough, if you kept reaching, the light found you. The past no longer hurt, only peace remained. Peace, and the certainty that love, real, true, enduring love, always finds its way home.